Hi guys, Jamie here from JB Motion. Now, about a week ago I asked you all to have a look at a video and pick a scene from it that you'd like to be broken down into a tutorial. So the votes are in and it looks like scene 5 was the favourite, so that's the one we're going to be going with. We're going to be starting off by bringing our footage into After Effects, tracking our camera, bringing everything into Cinema 4D and adding in our 3D elements. Then we're going to be bringing it back into After Effects and doing the finishing touches. So let's get started on this. Here we go. Okay, so first of all we're going to bring in our scene or our footage. I have it here so you guys can download it from the description below if you want to follow along with this exactly, or you can use your own. So let's bring that in and we can drag this down here to this composition icon. Okay, so let's just watch this. So camera comes in and kind of just walks around over here. So we need to first create a camera that we're going to be able to bring in Cinema 4D. So let's go and do that now. Make sure that your footage is selected and go to animation and track camera. So that's going to analyze in background. So it does that for a while and then it solves the camera. This blue will change to orange and it'll solve the camera. So it'll take a bit of time, so I'm just going to pause the video and we'll pop back in once it's done. Okay, so that's done now. So what we can do is just kind of scrub along and have a look at these track points. So we want to find the ones that are not going to disappear too early. So look for the green ones. So the red ones are likely to disappear, so we're going to focus on the green ones. There's one here and there's one up here beside the X, kind of where if you wanted to close the window. One down here kind of beside the, I'm talking about if you look on the screen you can see After Effects. So close windows here, the composition title is here, we'll say, and the end of the timeline is here. So these ones seem to be here for the longest amount of time. Now I haven't checked them all, but it looks good for these ones. So if we scrub along, they're still there. Keep scrubbing, still there. And it is around 14 seconds where it just kind of jumps, and this one jumps over. So I'm going to use these ones. I'm just going to go back to the beginning and hold down, well, I'm going to select this one first just by right clicking on it, and I'm going to hold down control and do the same for that one and this one. So now you can see our target pops up. So what we can do is right click and go create solid and camera. So that's going to create a solid and a camera. So we'll be able to bring this in Cinema and use it for our scene. So that's a pretty good track. What we can do is add in a few more track solids, a few more of these, just so it makes it easier for us when it comes to positioning the characters that we're going to be putting in and all the stuff. So let's do that now. So select scene 5, the footage layer, and select the effect. Then you're going to see all your track points popping up again, and again we can kind of look for green ones, green track points, because they're going to be the most reliable ones. So we'll just look for the green ones. So we could put one here because these ones seem pretty strong, we'll say. Right click and then create solid this time. So that's just going to create a solid. We already have a camera. So let's see, are there any more ones over here that look like they're going to stick around for a while? So let's see, maybe this one and this one and this one possibly. create a solid there. And we'll do, let's see, maybe one more kind of just, yeah, we'll just kind of do a random one there, just in case. Probably won't be using that, but so now we have enough track solids. We can just kind of watch this playback and just watch each of them and see if any of them are slipping. So some of them might slip, but hopefully not. So there was a bit of a jitter there on that one, alright, but because the guys that we're putting in are going to kind of be around here and there's a guy doing push-ups here, the screen is going to be up here, but it should work out okay. Okay, so let's save this now. I'm just going to do a Control and Shift S. So I hit Control Shift S and it actually stopped my screen recording, so I had to sort that out. Very annoying indeed. So we'll just do a file save as on that, and we will go and find the folder, and it's this one, so we can just say save this as, let's say, tracked cam scene 5. Okay, so let's now export this to a file that we can open in Cinema 4D, and just click OK there, and we're going to go and find our folder again, and we'll just call this scene 5, I suppose. Okay, so let's open up Cinema now and we can open up our scene. So let's just go to File, Open Project, and I have it here, scene 5. So there are our track points and there's our camera. So if I just deactivate it, there it goes. Just follows along as the real camera did in the scene. Okay, so we want to get our footage in here, so let's create a background object and create a new material. Let's open that up and just call it background, and we're going to load the footage into the luminance channel. So let's grab it. Let's just select any of the frames and you can just click on open. Say no to that. Now click into the thumbnail here and then go into the animation tab and click on calculate. So that'll say it'll calculate the amount of frames in the sequence. And we want to go to viewport here and turn on animate preview, so this will actually show us the animation as well. Once we apply it to our background object, we'll do that now. And now we can watch the scene. So the track solids are holding firm, they're looking pretty good, so no worries there. We can turn off the work plane, we won't need that. Okay, so we have our scene. So we're going to focus on our push-up guy first of all. So let's just go to File and we'll go to Merge Project, and in the mocap folder, well, I have a mocap folder, you'll be able to download these guys, all these fellas from the description below as well. So let's just bring in the push-up guy first of all. Just click on OK and say no to that. So he's just kind of over there somewhere miles away, so let's just hold down Control so we can select both the geometry and the joints as well. Hit Alt G in your keyboard to put them into a null, and this is going to be our push-up guy. Okay, so now let's kind of try and we want to align him with one of these track points, so or these track solids. So we're going to be using this one here, trying to grab it. So this is the one we're going to be using because the push-up guy is going to be doing push-ups kind of here on the desk. So let's make the push-up guy a child of the track solid that we want to align it to. And then we can use the reset transform. It used to be called reset PSR. I think they've changed the name unless reset PSR still exists somewhere and I can't find it. But they're exactly the same tool. They do exactly the same thing. So let's bring this up now and just bring it up to the top of the hierarchy there. Or even the bottom, doesn't matter, wherever you want, and just as long as it's not a child of the track solid anymore. And we're going to scale him up as well. So click on the coordinates tab and let's just where is it? There it is. Just bring this up to about 4 on each axis. Okay, so let's just deactivate our camera now and just zoom in on this guy. So we want to rotate him, obviously. Let's first of all just create a desk. So if we go back into our camera, we'll kind of recreate the desk that's in the scene. So we're just going to use a cube for that. And we can, again, we want to align it with the with this track solid. So we'll do that again. And do that. Reset transformation again. Reset transform. And this is going to be our desk. So I've taken it out into the bottom of the hierarchy. It's no longer a child of the track solid, so make sure you do that again. And now we can kind of just scale this up. Well, scale it up along the, let's go into our object tab and we can scale it up along the X. We'll go to about 4,000, maybe even 6. And then rotate, let's rotate this to something like this. Just trying to line it up with the desk as best as I can. And we can use this little circle here to increase the size again, even further. And we can, if you're able to grab this circle, you'll be able to scale it up. But if not, you can just go into your object tab, select the desk object, go into the object tab, then you'll be able to scale it up. I think it's along the Y, yes. So you can do it like that as well. Okay, so I'm going to leave my desk like that for now. I am going to put a bit of rounding on the edge as well. So select your desk object and just turn on fillet. Let's just zoom in a bit. Hit NB in your keyboard and we can increase the radius of that. And we'll leave it at that for now. We'll probably have to tweak that in a minute. So now what we can do is we can create a new material and we can call this desk, and in the color channel we're going to load in our footage again. So we could just copy the shader here from the background material. So open up the background material, go into the luminance. Oh, I didn't mean to have reflectance left on there, so just turn that off in your background material. Go into the luminance channel and then we can just copy the shader here. Hop back into the desk material. And in the color channel we can just paste that in. Okay. So now let's apply that to our desk. And we can click on the texture tag, go to projection and set that to frontal. And we also want to add a render tag onto this compositing tag, and let's see, turn on compositing background. Okay, so now let's see if we can, well, we'll just do a quick render of this and see what it's looking like. Okay, so the desk is blending in nicely with the background. Now whether or not it's lined up or not is another story. So it isn't lined up at all. So let's just do that now. Select your desk and get your move tool, and then we can just try and line this up a bit better with our desk. Maybe we need to rotate it slightly as well. And scale it down as well using this yellow circle. So we're scaling it down along the Y, and we can scale it down along the X as well. And let's just move it up, and we're going to have to bring it down even more just so we're lining up the edge there. So something like that. Well, it looks kind of lined up. Doesn't look too bad. Yeah, we'll leave it like that and we'll see what that looks like. So that should be good. We'll know soon enough once we kind of get our lights in here and see what kind of shadows are being cast by our guy, who looks like he's just sticking up out of something there. So let's fix him as well. So where is he? Here he is. Okay, so let's deactivate the camera for a second, and then we can actually hide this track solid. Just hold down Alt and double click on these two little circles twice. Well, double click once, not twice. That'll be 4 clicks. You don't want to do that. So select your push-up guy, hit R on your keyboard, and let's just rotate this guy 90 degrees. So let's see if he's anywhere near on the desk. So he isn't. So let's just rotate him. Now I'm using spacebar to switch back to the previously selected tool, and I can do it again to switch then back again. So that's how I'm just toggling there, just in case you were wondering. So I'm going to my move tool and I'm bringing him down, and we want him to line up as well as we can get him lining up. So it's kind of awkward because the let's turn off materials for the time being. Go to options and turn off materials. Might get a better view of what we're trying to do then. So right now that looks kind of good actually. Looks like the toes are kind of touching the ground or the desk just at about the same time as the hands. So I think I'm happy enough with that. Is that hovering? No, it is actually intersecting, to be honest. So are the hands, but you know what? The camera's going to be far away and this guy's pretty small. I'll bring him up a little bit. And we'll leave it like that, maybe. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. So that one's obviously intersecting a lot, but if we just go back into our camera again, you know, you'll see that the camera's pretty far away, so it shouldn't be a problem. So let's now turn back on materials. Just go to options again and turn back on materials. Okay, so we can bring in a light here. So we're going to use a sky object to light up our scene. So let's just grab one of those, and there it is. Let's get a render tag onto that. Render tags compositing. It's a compositing tag. I'm still getting used to the new version of this this old software, you know, Cinema 4D. So yeah, still getting used to that. So what we want to do is just go into the compositing tag that we just added onto the sky object, and let's turn off scene by camera so that we're not going to see it. And we want a material for our sky object as well. So we can use, what could we use? We just need to use one frame of our scene. Now it would be ideal to have like a 360 image, or at least a panorama or something that we could put on this sky object, so that we're going to get a full wrap of our entire scene. But I don't have one of those, so I'm just going to use the one of the frames from the sequence. So let's just create a new material, and we'll call this sky. And we can deselect reflectance and color. We're going to put it into the luminance channel, and we just want one of these frames, so I'm going to grab one that has the door in it, so we're going to get that kind of lighting from the door as well in this. So I'll just copy this into this folder, or into my main folder, and then what I can do is just open that up, and now we're just going to have the one frame. I probably could have just clicked on one of the frames from the sequence anyway and just not hit the calculate button, but anyway, it's done now. Okay, so that's in the luminance channel. So let's apply this sky object to our sky. And if we render now, we won't really see much because we need to turn on global illumination so that the sky object actually lights our scene using the image that we just applied to it. So let's do that now. Go to your render settings and effect, turn on global illumination, and then we can add ambient occlusion as well, so we'll get those contact shadows of our guy's hand and feet with the desk. So let's see our render settings. Go into output, 1280 by 720. So yeah, this is going to be a 1280 by 720 render, and we're just going to be rendering out the current frame because we're just doing a quick test of this. We don't want to save it, and then we can go render to picture viewer on that. Okay, so this is our scene. We're getting a bit of lighting in it now. So we need to move our guy over kind of onto the desk here, because he's kind of sitting on top of something. I don't know what it is. What is he sitting on top of? Anyway, I think it's my phone, possibly. Looks like a phone anyway. So let's bring this guy over. So we can hop into our top view, middle mouse click anywhere in the window, and then middle mouse click again here in the top view. Select your push-up guy, go into the viewport here with your mouse and hit S, and then we'll find him and we'll be able to move him. Oh, I didn't mean to rotate the screen there. We'll be able to move him kind of over, and let's have a look. We're going to rotate him as well. So I'm using R on my keyboard, just going to rotate him around so that he's kind of facing outwards, and we can have a look at that now and see what that looks like. So now he's a bit too far over, so let's bring him back to about here. We can turn on our interactive render region as well. So he's looking kind of better there. Let's just play a few frames of this. Okay, so we need to make it so that this animation loops. So right now it's just kind of playing and then it's stopping. So we want it to loop. So what we can do is Shift F3 on your keyboard, and that'll open up your timeline. Let's just select the Mixamo 1 hips animation, And then we can go over here. Over here you'll see this attributes tab pops up, and in the properties tab we can set this after here to repeat, I believe. Is it repeat? I think it's repeat. And we can say how many repetitions we want. So we'll say we want 100. That work? Okay, so let's see if that actually did work or not. Yeah, okay, so that worked. Great. So he's doing his push-ups throughout the whole scene, so we can actually go a bit closer to him, see what he's looking like. Okay, so yeah, he's looking okay, we'll say. His hands are intersecting the desk again, so we can fix that. We'll just deactivate our camera. And he must have gone down through the desk when we moved him over, because he's not correctly aligned with the desk. So I suppose we should just align him with the desk. It'd make sense, wouldn't it? Let's turn off the interactive render region. And let's see, this might completely mess us up now, so I will undo if it does. Let's make the push-up guy child of the desk and just go to the reset transform. Okay, so he is aligned with the desk now, but I don't know where he's after going. He's just gone there. He's gone really small as well. Yeah, I'm undoing that. I'm just going to rotate him. It's going to be quicker. Otherwise I'm going to have to rescale him and all that messing. So I'm just going to bring him up and just going to rotate him so he's looking more like a man who knows what he's doing. And let's see, rotate him again a little bit. Okay, he's going to have to rotate more because his feet are touching the ground way before his hands are. They kind of are, to be honest. So we'll have to rotate him a bit more. I'm just zooming in so I can be a bit more precise with these rotations. Okay, so I think that's looking a bit better. His hands are still... Yeah, do you know what? That's not looking bad at all. So you guys just mess around with it, with that rotation, until he gets, until he starts looking good. We'll do a render to picture viewer here on this scene, on this frame here. Yeah, so that's looking pretty good, to be fair. It's not looking too bad. Okay, so that's our push-up guy in our scene. So now what we can do is bring in the other guys that are just sitting here and they're having a chat. So let's grab those now. Just go to File, Merge Project, and you'll be able to bring them in there. If you haven't already downloaded them, do so now from the description below. So let's grab Sitting Laughing 1 for now. Just click OK there, and then we're not going to reassign the takes. So let's hold down Control, select the joints, so we have the joints and the geometry selected. Alt G on your keyboard, and let's just group those into a null. We can call the null Sitting Talking Guy. And now we can align him with our push-up guy, and then he'll get the same scale and position and rotation as push-up guy, so that'll make things a bit easier for ourselves. So make him a child of the push-up guy null, then just reset the transform on that. Now we're going to drag him back out, so he's no longer a child of push-up guy, and we're just going to kind of push him over here for now. So he's going to be sitting somewhere around there, and let's give him something to actually to support him, I suppose. Well, it's not going to support him, but something that's going to receive his shadows. So we can just grab our desk object and just hold down Control on any of the axes. Probably this one would be best, and then hold down Control and just click and drag. Now we can just scale this down using this yellow circle, and we just need enough space to catch this guy's shadows around him. So that should be fine. And if we deactivate our camera, we're probably going to have to just kind of line this up a bit better. So we can grab the desk that we just created and push that back. Let's go back into our camera and see what that's looking like. So that's looking fine. So as you can see, I'm not really worried about lining it up as much because it's not really making much of a difference. I mean, we didn't really do the best job. We lined it up, but the orientation's changing based off the perspective. But it doesn't actually matter because as you can see when we hit render, everything that's sticking out isn't actually visible. It's just blended in with the background as we've applied to it the compositing tag and turned on compositing background as well there. So that's handy enough. So we don't need to worry too much about lining it up, contrary to what I was saying at the beginning. So let's just kind of get this guy, sitting talking guy, deactivate my camera again, and let's just bring him up so that he is just touching our floor. Now we might need to rotate him as well, just a little bit. We can bring him up a bit more maybe. And I'm going to rotate him a bit more as well. Okay. So just fine tune that so that his feet are flat on the desk. Desk 1, that is. So now that we have him in, we need a seat for him to sit on. So let's go File and New Project. Let's just create a cylinder, I suppose we can go for. And bring down the height. So we go into the Object tab. The height is going to be something like 100. And the radius we can go for something like 40 centimeters. And now let's just bring the height down a little bit more, down to about something like this. And let's grab a displacement deformer. So make sure before you do this actually that your cylinder object is selected. Then what you can do is get your displacer, find your displacer deformer, hold down shift before you release the mouse click, and then it'll automatically be added as a child where we need it to be. And then we can go into the shading tab of the displacer and just put in a noise there, and we can scale this up a bit. And let's hit NB on our keyboard to show lines. So we're going to have to use a subdivision surface object. This time I'm holding down Alt with the cylinder selected. It'll automatically add the subdivision surface as a parent of the cylinder. So that's handy. And what we can do is go back into the displacer object and just mess with the global scale of this. So something like that, just so it looks kind of like something you could sit on. It's got some softness to it. Okay, so that's his seat. So what we can do is just call this, well, I suppose we can just bring it into our scene. Just Control C, select the subdivision surface, Control C in your keyboard. Let's go into scene 5 here, and we can just paste that in, Control V. Now what I want to do is just right click on the subdivision surface and go to, let's see, so first of all we need to select all of the children. So to do that, quick way is to middle mouse click on the parent, and then it selects all the children, right click and go to connect objects and delete. So that's just going to give us just one bit of geometry for our seat, and we'll rename that to seat as well. So let's now align this with, I suppose, our guy. It would make sense to do that. We can reset the transform at, so make the seat a child of the sitting talking guy, and then reset transform on that. That'll bring the seat actually pretty close to where we want it to be, and we can then just bring that out so it's no longer a child of our guy. So now let's just zoom in on this. Make sure your camera is deactivated and make sure you're not moving this camera around. It wouldn't let you anyway, even if you moved it by accident, I think, because it's keyframed. So even if you did move it, just hit play and it should jump back into position. So we'll scale this down and kind of just try and scale and reposition it until it looks like it's right where it should be, which is under his butt, obviously. And we don't want it to be intersecting the floor too much. A little bit is fine. So that's looking pretty good. Well, his foot is kind of intersecting there now, so I'm going to bring it back. And I'm just using spacebar to switch between previously and currently selected tools there. We'll bring this back and over a bit. So that is no longer intersecting the foot anyway. So if we just hit play and just watch this, just to make sure that he's not going to be moving his foot and intersecting the seat. He does kind of lift himself up off the seat, but that's fine. He gets very excited when he's laughing. But that's kind of cool. Okay, so now we have this guy in there, and he's kind of laughing at somebody's story, but to make him look like he isn't mental, we're going to have to give him a friend that's going to be telling him a story. So he'll be, you know, doing his laugh, and the friend will be telling him his story. So let's do that now. But before we do that, let's suppose we'll do a test render to see what this is looking like. Okay, so we're going to need to, first of all, we're going to have to bring him forward a bit because he's just right up against that wall and the post-its there. So we'll do that now. Grab the seat and the sitting talking guy, and let's just bring him forward a bit. And we can do the same with desk 1 as well. Okay. Cool. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Next, we're bringing in the other guy, his buddy. So let's bring him in now. I'm just going to do a Control S. Just keep saving. Save, save, save. So let's file, merge project, and bring in the, well, we have him. So do we have him? I think we have him. Let's just cancel that and, well, shouldn't have cancelled it, but anyway, let's just see if we can open this and have a look at it. Yeah, okay, so this is the guy, this is his buddy that's just kind of sitting and telling a story, and the other guy is laughing at the guy's story. So we'll bring him in, sitting talking. So we should rename this to Laughing Guy, because he's the guy who's laughing. Oh, close that, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do a merge project. So I'm going to jump back into, oh my computer is acting really strange now. That's not good, is it? That is not good. Oh no, what's going on? Okay, I'll press on and hope for the best. I'm just going to keep saving. I do not know what's going on with my computer. It seems to be fixing itself. Okay, fingers crossed that that strangeness doesn't happen again, because that's worrying. Very worrying. Okay, so where was I? Okay, file, merge project. We'll get this guy in. So here he is now. Sitting talking guy. Okay. Say no to reassign the takes. And let's grab his joints and make sure his geometry is also selected. Alt-G, group him into a null, and we'll call him sitting talking guy, because the other guy is actually sitting laughing guy, so we'll rename the other guy as well. Sitting laughing guy. Okay, so sitting talking guy is, he looks like he's actually outside. Look at him over there, miles away. So what we'll do is we'll align him with the sitting laughing guy. So just make him a child of the null and reset transform on that. Make sure to drag him back out, and we can just bring him up there, or wherever you want him to be. I'm just kind of trying to keep this organized as much as possible. So we have him now. We can just kind of move him around. He's already set up position wise, and we can rotate him around, and he's just going to be sitting there chatting to the guy. And we need a seat for him as well. I should have just duplicated this seat. Anyway, we can do that now. Grab the seat, and I'm just going to jump into my top view. Hold down Control over this little green kind of triangle yoke, and then we'll be able to move our seat along all axes except for the y-axis. So that's handy enough. So hold down Control, click and drag, and where am I going with this? We're going to this guy. Back into perspective, and we can deactivate our camera and just kind of see how he's looking. So he's going to have to be pushed up. So let's grab seat 1. We might as well put it beside him as well. Might as well just put it into the null altogether, and grab sitting talking guy and just move him up. And I'm going to have the seat intersecting the desk a little bit, and his feet just resting on top of the desk. And now we can have a look at what this is looking like if we do a render preview here. So that's looking, it's all looking decent enough, I suppose. We're going to have to create a light here, so we can do that now. Because this light, we want to replicate this light in our actual scene. So let's see, how is this looking? I'm trying to tidy up any. That's tidy enough. We'll leave it as is. Okay, so let's create a light for this light. So again, it's jumping to world center. We need to align it. We can actually align this light using this track solid because it's very close to where we want our light to be. So let's open up this tracked cam scene 5, well named, null, and which one? It's this one. It's the second one. So let's make the light a child of track solid 1. If you want, you can even rename it to clipboard, because that's where it's at. It's beside this clipboard, so you can rename your track solids if you want to make it easier for yourselves. So let's, now that the light is a child of the clipboard track solid, we can then reset transform, and then the light's going to jump to just about where we want it to be. So let's de-child it, adopt it, I don't know, bad joke. So we can make sure that it's no longer a child of the track solid. And now what we need to do as well is go into the coordinates tab, and we can reset the rotation here. Just zero that out, and we can also just bring this up a little bit and bring it back just a little bit, so it's slightly behind the clipboard, well, the track solid clipboard, as it would be in the real scene. Now we don't want it to be just a point light, we want it to be an area light. So let's do that now. Grab your light, go into the general tab, set the type to area. Okay, so jump into your top view there, and then we can kind of better align this. So first of all, we can rotate this around the x-axis. Just hold down shift and it'll rotate in increments of 5 degrees. Once you get to 90, just let go. So rotating at 90 degrees around the x-axis, and we're also going to try and line it up a bit better with this clipboard track solid. So now that's nice and lined up, and we can just kind of make this longer. We can do this in perspective as well. I'm going to grab this. It's very difficult to see now, this orange circle, but you'll be able to see it on your own computers a lot better than you will in this video. Just grab the orange circle or the yellow circle and just scale that up. So now we have our light, and it's replicating the real light in our scene. So now what we can do is have a look and see what it looks like, I suppose, because it could be just ruining our entire scene, but it shouldn't be doing that. We can turn on shadows as well for it. Grab the light, go into the shadow tab and turn on area shadows, and we'll just do a render. We'll do a render to picture viewer as a treat. Okay, so let's see what we're dealing with. So that's not looking too bad. You know, the light's shining down on them and it looks like it's, you know, it's as intense as you'd imagine it would be from the, you know, from the specular highlights along their arms and on top of their heads. It seems like they're actually there and in the scene and beside this light. So I'm happy enough with that. Just want to be careful that this shadow here is being cut off because the the geometry that's acting as the desk isn't actually long enough. So we just need to scale that up. Grab desk 1 and just use the yellow circle to scale that up. We can even just move it over a little bit as well. So let's do another render to picture viewer on that. And I think that we've done it. So no longer do we have any problems with our shadow being cut off, but we are seeing a difference in color here because the lighting that's being cast is it's illuminating the desk that we created, and this is just real desk, so it's not being illuminated, it's just the background image. So we don't want that, so what we're going to do is scale this up even more. I might just bring it right out to the edge altogether. And then if we do another render to picture viewer on that, so that solved our issue there. Okay, so we're getting places. We have all the characters in there that we want to put in. So what we're going to be doing next is we're going to be putting in the TV. So if we just jump back into, if we go into Cinema and go into the content browser here, or the asset browser as it's called now. So in here, if you just search TV, you will find a TV, and you might have to download it. But I'm just going to double click on this. I already have it downloaded, and I'm just going to close the asset browser now and look at the TV. There it is. It's all the way over there. So let's align it with this track solid. So I just clicked on it there to reveal it in the object hierarchy here in the object manager. So let's make the TV a child of that track solid 1, and then just reset transform on that. Then we can just bring it back up to the top of the object manager, and we can then just start scaling it up. So with your scale tool, just start scaling that up. We don't need the stand, so we can get rid of that. And we don't need the power cable, so we can get rid of that as well. So everything else we're using, and I suppose we need to rotate this, so just R on your keyboard to do that. And just kind of rotate that forward, and I'm going to bring that up, but I want to use the I want to use the world coordinate system, so just select that there and you'll be able to drag it straight up. The keyboard shortcut for that is W as well, so you can kind of switch between object and world. So bring it up and maybe over a bit. Well, that isn't really over, it's not going over. I'm going to jump into my top view so that I can use this green triangle here to move it over, kind of like that. Okay, so yeah, something like that, I suppose. So right now it's pretty big. I mean, you can have it that big if you want. You can have it that big if you want. But I'm not going to have mine that big. I'm going to go down to about the size of my other 2 monitors. Something like that. And I'm just checking now, scrubbing along to see how that's looking. So that's looking pretty good with regards to the track. I'm going to move it up so it's not like touching the tops of the monitors here. And back into top view then, it's going to move it over. I'm going to go into 4-way view actually so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm trying to just get it in the center of both monitors. Move it up a little bit more so it's not touching the, I have a webcam here on the top of my monitor. I don't want it to be touching off that. That is looking decent. So, I mean, we could have it so that it looks like it's a futuristic monitor and it hovers there by itself. But I'm going to go for something a bit more believable. So I'm going to just kind of create some that look like they're going to kind of go around behind and just go behind the actual monitor, so it doesn't look like it's floating in the air. So to do that, I'm going to grab an arc and I'm going to align it with the flat screen TV. So I'll make it a child of that null and then reset transform, bring it back out, and then deactivate my camera and just hit S on my keyboard. That's gonna, well, there we go, just brought me to the arc there, so I didn't have to go messing around and looking for it. Okay, so first of all I'm going to hit W to go back into my object coordinate system, or you can click the button here. And I want to hit R on my keyboard to get my rotate tool, and I'm just going to rotate it around the y-axis 90 degrees. Hold down shift to rotate that in increments of 5 degrees. Okay, so I also want to kind of rotate it a little bit around the z-axis, kind of like that, so around that value. And yeah, okay, so what we can do now is just sweep this. So select the arc and go up to this extrude button, hold down Alt, and we're just going to go down to sweep and release, making sure you're holding down Alt to automatically add the arc as a child of the sweep. Now we need something to sweep, so we're going to sweep this circle spline along this arc. So just drag that circle spline down to be a child of the sweep, and it has to be before the arc in the hierarchy. So we can bring down the scale on that, and if I just zoom in, go around to the other side where we have a light source, so we can see, and we can just kind of reduce the number of polygons there. Okay, cool. So we have something now. I don't know if this is going to look any good. I need to make it bigger anyway. I'm going to go back into the circle spline and just bring up the radius, because it's pretty skinny at the moment. And I'll jump back into my camera and let's have a look at this now. Well, actually I want to just bring it a bit closer to the TV. Okay, so something like that. I suppose we'll move it over to the right as well, or the left. Camera left or right, is it the, yeah, so over to the left, but it'll be camera right, I suppose. And then we can hold down Control and click and drag to get another one. So now we have two. They're not evenly spaced or perfectly centered with the TV. You'd have to kind of put a bit of effort into that, or you could just clone your sweep and then you'd get you'd be able to make sure that it was correct. Both of them were correctly aligned, but I'm not going to do that now. I'm just going to eyeball it, and I'm just going to keep scrubbing as well, just to have a look at how that's looking. It's looking pretty good, to be honest. Now the way I have it set up is, so if I render this, let's have a look what it looks like. So because the material here is very dark, it's just kind of blended in with the top part of the monitor. You can barely see that that's actually sticking out in front of the monitor, because the monitor is black and so is that. We could even we could darken up the material if we created a kind of a black material and just applied it to these sweeps. But I think that's fine as it is, actually, to be honest. And the splines don't seem to go down past the black part of the monitor at all. They do go above it though, so that's something. So obviously yeah, they are going above it, and it's not really noticeable until you actually see the gap here. So what I'll do is I will I'll have to bring the sweeps down, I suppose. And I'm going to do that using the world coordinate system. So maybe down to about there. And now if we go back to the beginning, now it doesn't seem like there's any gap anymore. We'll just have to do a render and see. Maybe a very slight gap. I don't think it's going to be noticeable. Because if you play that, let's have a look. We'll go forward a bit. By the time you get to around frame 100, the gap is already gone. So I don't think I need to bring those sweeps down anymore. Maybe just a little bit more. It's probably unnecessary. And I'm going to jump into my top view just to kind of, obviously these are all out of whack. They're not even, this one isn't even close to where it should be. So I will hop into object coordinate system and just bring that over. So it looks a bit more correct. That one's fine. And now that's looking much better. So what are we going to do about these guys that are now they're sticking out over the monitor? So we're going to have to hide them some way. So what we could do is possibly we could create an object here and possibly render it out as an object buffer maybe. Or what we could do is just kind of mask out the part that sticks out of the monitor in After Effects when we're finished rendering. I think I might do something like that. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to let those parts stick out of the monitor, and then I'm going to bring it into After Effects at the end for this render. Once we've rendered it out, bring in the sequence into After Effects and just create a mask that's going to follow the edge of this monitor. It's a straight line, so it'll be easy to keyframe. It won't take very long, and that'll solve our issue with that. Okay, so next is what we're going to do is we're going to create the guy, so we're going to have a newsreader here on the screen. So what we're going to be doing now is creating this newsreader. We're going to do this in a new scene, so let's do that now. We'll just go File, New Project, and we are going to need this guy, this talking guy. Now I didn't actually have him copied into the folder at the beginning, so I'm going to copy him in now, and you've probably already seen this guy in the description, available for download. So I'm just going to copy him now into the correct folder. And now that we have him, we can just bring him in. So if I do a File and Merge Project, and we can bring him into our scene and say no to that. Okay, so we have him now. Now what we can just kind of create a camera, I suppose. We're going to need one of those. Make it active, not that button. Make it active, and go into the Coordinates tab and just zero out the rotation. And we can just zoom in. We can zero out the X value, and we can leave the Y and Z as it is. This guy is going to be on the telly, so what we can do is go into our camera and go into the object tab and set the focal length to, you guessed it, telly. Where is telly? There it is. It's in focal length, and there it is. Okay, so now that's going to look more like a bit like he is on the telly. And he is going to be doing his speech for, well, 90 frames. We have to increase the frame range actually, because we need him to be talking for, we just, where am I going? Go back into the scene, our cinema scene. Geez, my computer is doing this rubbish again. Unbelievable. Okay, we go back into the scene 5, and we can see that we're going to be seeing the TV for all of those frames. So we're going to need him talking for this amount of frames. So I'm just going to copy that and jump back into this project, this file, this scene here, and I'm going to paste in that number into my frame range, and now we have that amount of frames. So he's going to be talking for that amount of frames. So we're going to have to render this out. So I suppose we can light up our scene before we do that. And grab a light. Let's bring it into a nice position. And we can go into the shadow tab of that light, turn on area shadows, and now let's just duplicate this light, bring it over here, and we can turn off shadows for that, bring down the intensity to about 50%. Let's go back into our camera and let's see, maybe bring the intensity down to 45% and do a render preview on that. Okay, it's not looking too bad. The geometry itself is looking a bit rough, so we can put the character's geometry into a subdivision surface. So I held down Alt to do that automatically, and now if we have a look at that again, so it's looking a bit better. So let's get an extra light in here, and I think this is good to go then. So I'm just going to jump into my top view, grab light 1, and I'm going to duplicate it, holding down Control to do so. Just bring it around here, just kind of around his head, and I want to bring it up a little bit as well. So we're going to get some nice rim lighting there on his head. Okay, let's jump back into the camera and have a look at that. Okay, so that's looking good. Let's have a quick scrub just to make sure we're happy with everything. So I might actually just bring the camera up a bit, and now if I have another look at that, I think that's looking good. Okay, so we're going to hop back into scene 5. So just hold down V on your keyboard, and you can see this is happening again with my menu. I think it's happening because of the screen recorder I'm using. It doesn't seem to happen outside of using that. Anyway, just hold down V on your keyboard and go to Projects and Scene 5. Hopefully it's not happening for you. It shouldn't be anyway. So now what we are going to do is we're going to set this scene up for render. And we have just created our news talker guy, and he's going to be going onto the screen. We're going to be putting him onto the screen in After Effects. But what we need to do is we need to create something that After Effects can see. So we're going to use an external compositing tag and we're going to put it here on this screen object. So first of all, let's find that. So it's going to be in the flat screen TV null, in the front null, and there it is. So I'm just going to right click on this and go to render tags and external compositing. And there it is, there we have it. So a couple of things we want to do is turn on solid, so it will actually render out, it'll give us a solid that we can use in After Effects. For the size X and Y, I'm just going to copy the size of the screen. And same here for Y as well. Color doesn't really matter. I'm going to go for green. And that is set up. Okay. So we have that. Now that's going to give us a green square in the shape of this screen that's going to be acting as a layer that we can use inside of After Effects. Now we're also going to have to use a compositing tag so we can create an object buffer for that screen. So that's going to allow us to then cut out anything that goes outside of the screen. So we're going to need that. So we'll do that now as well. So we'll right click on the screen, go to render tags and compositing. So go into the object buffer tab there that pops up and click on enable, and we're going to just go for the first one, buffer 1. So buffer 1 is going to be the one we're going for with this. So let's go into our render settings and we need to set that up. So go to multipass and add an object buffer. We need to turn on the multipass save as well. And just make sure that the group ID is matching up. If we had more than one object buffer, let's just say we had another one of these compositing tags on a button, we'd have to then change that one to be 2 because 1 is already in use. Then we'd have to go to multipass, add another object buffer, and then we'd have to change this to 2 as well. But we just need the 1, so I can get rid of that. Let's go to output. This is going to be 1280 by 720. We're going to be rendering out, we don't need all the frames, but we do need from frame 0 all the way until all of the geometry that we've put in there is out of the shot. So about around frame 591, something like that. So we're going to go for manual and we're going to type in, what is it, 591. And then we can just use the rest of the actual video in After Effects to just play the rest of the video. We don't have to render each of these video frames. That's just going to increase render time and it's not necessary. So we have that done now. One thing I spotted is we haven't yet turned off our track solids, so we can do that now. We'll just find them. So we have 4 of them, looks like, so we can just turn all those off. No more track solids. So let's just have a look. So we have our external compositing tag, we have our object buffer set up. Back into render settings, and we have our object buffer here. The group ID matches with the compositing tag's buffer ID there. So we just need to do the rest of the settings. We have our frames set up, number of frames we're going to be rendering. So let's turn on save, and we're going to save this out as a PNG sequence. Let's get a destination now for this. Oh, sugar. I'm going to create a new folder and call it sequence. And inside that folder, I'm going to create a folder to call it AE. That's where our After Effects compositing file is going to go. And another one for the buffer. Excuse me. So our object buffer is going to go in there. So, okay, so in the top sequence folder, we're just going to save this out as Office Folk main. Don't need the alpha channel. For the multipass, this is going to be our object buffer. That's the only multipass render we're doing. So let's set this also to be a PNG sequence, and destination is going to be the buffer folder. We'll just call this Office Folk Buffer. And that's fine as it is. Everything else is fine settings wise. And then the last thing we have to do is set up the save settings for the external compositing tag that we created, and that's going to be saved out as an After Effects file that we'll be able to open up in After Effects. So let's turn on save and click on this button, save project file, and now just pick a destination for this one. So back into sequence, and we're going to go for the AE folder that we just created. Call this scene 5 AE. And that is all of the render settings done, and that should be good to go now for render. So let's just close down our render settings, do a Control S to save, go to the render queue, and let's add this to it. And then hit play, making sure that the camera is the correct camera that we want to be using as well, because I've been caught out with that a few times. But as we only have the one in there, it won't be a problem. Okay, so now hit play on that, and that's going to render away. Okay guys, so that render has finished, and if you have rendered your own sequence, that's great. So we're moving on to the After Effects part now. If not, you guys can just download everything from the description below. So I just double clicked in my in this panel here to open up my import file dialog, and if we go into the sequence folder, we can see all of our sequences and exports and everything that we've set up. So this is the main sequence here. This is the buffer, the object buffer of the screen, and which we might not even need actually. But this is the After Effects AEC file that we'll be able to import into After Effects, and this is our News Talker Man sequence as well. So these are all the things we're going to be using, and you guys can download all of these from the description below. So let's just bring in this AEC file. So it has brought in for us, it's brought in our object buffer, and it's also brought in our composition that if we open it up, it's made up of the screen, the compositing tag we applied to the screen has created this screen layer for us, which is here. We can't see it's green now because this light that we set up is on. We don't need to keep that on because we already have rendered out the effects of this light and the shadow and all that in the main render. So we can turn that off, and then that'll pop in to be green. So what we can do first is we can just now, I suppose we'll bring in our News Talker guy sequence. And now what we need to do is right click on this screen layer, go to pre-compose, and we can call this, well, it's already called Screen Comp 1. It's probably not that for you, but I have set this up already. So it's Screen Comp 1, we can call it. And we're going to leave all attributes in Office Folk main. Click OK on that. And now if we open that up, this is our screen. So we can just add in the, where is our News Talker Man sequence as a layer. We can turn off screen, we don't need that. And just hit S on your keyboard with News Talk Man selected to bring up the scale properties. We can scale him up. And there he is. So he does his talking there. Now we have, I've found a background on Google Images as well. I'll include that in the description below as well. It is Newsroom. So let's bring that in and put this underneath our News Talker Man. We're going to have to S on that again and scale it up. And I'm just going to move it over so he's more kind of in the center of it, I suppose. It doesn't matter where you have yours positioned. You can have it up there or down there or anywhere. But I'm just going to have mine looking like this. And then search for a Gaussian blur in your effects and presets, and you can double click on that to apply it to the selected layer. And then we're just going to bring the blurriness up on that. So now if we jump back into the Office Folk main composition, you'll see that that is good to go. And it turns out we didn't actually need the object buffer at all. The only reason we would have needed the object buffer is if we set the size of our external compositing tag. Do you know the way in the properties in the Cinema 4D file we had a size X and size Y? If that was set to be too big, we could then use the object buffer to cut away any edges that are sticking out. But as we set the size correctly, we don't need to use the object buffer. Okay, so the next thing we have to deal with, so I suppose first of all, this is all looking really good. The render is looking class, everything's looking brilliant. But we need to sort out this issue. Remember, we have these kind of things that are holding up our new monitor and they're sticking out in front of our monitors. So how do we get rid of those? A nice quick way we could do this is with the rotor brush tool. Now, before the rotor brush tool, well, even not too long ago, I would have been using masks. But yeah, now we can use the rotor brush tool and we can just kind of mask this with ease. So let's do that now. So what we're going to do is go back to our project and we can just bring in an unedited version of our footage. And let's just bring that down. We can just leave it at the bottom for now and solo this layer so we can see what it is. So it's just our footage. And that's it. So we want to rotor brush this. So let's open it up so we can isolate it here. And now we'll be able to use our rotor brush tool. So select it. Make sure that you have double clicked on it in the layers so that it's open up in a separate tab here. You don't want to be doing it in the main composition tab. You want to have double clicked on it so that it opens up in its own separate tab. Otherwise you won't be able to use the rotor brush tool. So now let's zoom in. Just press Z on your keyboard. That'll bring up your magnifying glass and then you can zoom in. Or you can use the wheel on your mouse as well to do that. And I'm going to zoom in nice and close, grab my rotor brush tool. You can increase the size of the brush by holding down Control and just clicking and dragging. So I'm going to go and start drawing this in. So as you can see, it does most of the work for me. I don't need these edges to be perfect either, because the things that are sticking out, you can't even see them when they're just touching the black part. So this doesn't need to be perfect at all. And we just need to really get the top edge of this. So that is good to go. Now what we need to do is extend this range here. Otherwise it's only going to take into account the frames as far as here. So it is hard to see this actually, to be fair. But if you hover over the end of it, you'll get this kind of double arrow icon where your mouse should be. And then we just need to click and drag that all the way to the end. Once you have that done, you just need to just play. Hit space on your keyboard to play. And that is going to do its thing. So as you can see, the pink line is following as best it can the monitor edges. And it's doing a good job at it. Everything else outside of the pink area is going to be cut away, and then we're just going to have this part that we're going to be able to put over the monitor that we've put in, and it's going to cut away those things that are sticking out over it. So as you can see, this is going to take a little bit of time. Once this gets all the way to the end, we're then going to click on Cache and Block Rotor Brush. We're going to click on this freeze button here. And then it's going to do some more calculations. So it has to then cache each frame. So it's all going to take a bit of time, guys. So I'm going to pause the video here and we'll come back when this is finished. And then we'll click on the freeze button and pause the video again. And then we're pretty much finished. So back to you in a minute. So as you can see, we're right at the end of this. Now, it's gone as far as it needs to go once we don't see that pink line anymore. Once that monitor is off shot, we're done. Okay, so it's done. Just hit spacebar to stop that calculating, and then we can hit freeze to cache everything. So again, this has to freeze a total of 843 frames. So it is going to take a bit of time. So I'm going to pause the video and pop back to you in a minute. Okay guys, so that's finished now. So what we can do is go back into our composition, our Office Folk main composition. And let's just go back here to the beginning. So we can see that our monitor has been cut out and it looks pretty good, to be honest. So the last thing we need to do is just bring this layer that we have selected now above the Office Folk main layer, and then turn off the solo mode or isolation mode or whatever it's called. And now if we zoom in, so you can see that these parts that are sticking down are no longer sticking out over the monitors. They appear to be behind the monitors. And that is it, guys. So we really did a lot of work in this tutorial, and I honestly hope that you guys did learn a lot from this. If you did, please do hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, because it really helps out a lot. And if any of you guys have any suggestions for tutorials, maybe you feel like you've had enough of the compositing tutorials and you want to see something else, or you want me to keep going with the compositing tutorials, please let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.